Well, Kevin, congratulations on the success of the Dartmouth Regatta. Really brilliant achievement. I was there following you for the whole week on my boat. So tell us a bit about your boat. Tell us a bit about Jump to It. What made you go for a 99 and some history?
Right, the history. I wanted a boat with a wheel. The previous boat I had was an Elan, and that wasn't competitive. So I'd made my mind up to go for a J, and originally I was speaking to Key Yachting about a 97E. In that discussion, J Composites became involved, and they then offered to fit a wheel on the 99. So after some conversations about how they'd done it before, yes they had in the States, and various other discussions, I decided to go with the 99 with a wheel, which is different to all the other 99s in the UK. I think today it's the only one with a wheel.
It is at the moment, yeah, you're right. You're right. How long have you had the boat?
I did the deal in 19, latter part, mid to late 19, and the boat was finally delivered. Obviously we were in COVID, there was an issue with the keel when it was delivered, and I finally took control of the boat in June 2020.
Okay. And how big was the Elan? Because they were quite different boats.
Very different, just a foot smaller.
Okay.
But it had a wheel, the Elan, so
Yeah.
well, it had two wheels in fact. The E3, lovely boat, but just not a racer, which is what I wanted. It was my mistake, and you learn by your mistakes. Previous to that I had a Beneteau, previous to that I had a J109, and previous to that I owned a share in an X119.
Okay, brilliant. So have you done anything special to the boat to change it for racing?
No, the boat is standard. It does have a racing keel, which again is different in the UK except for Jet. I believe Jet has a racing keel, but all your other boats have got the standard bulbs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Other than that, no, it is a standard configuration.
So you haven't done anything special to the boat. Have you done anything special with the crew?
The boat, after years of doing offshore racing, I decided I'd had enough of that game, and I wanted to concentrate inshore racing. I like the high activity of inshore racing, putting sails up, dropping them down, going around marks.
Always plenty to do inshore, isn't there?
Always lots to do, and you get to sleep in a nice warm bed after a nice cold beer. So that to me is my enjoyment, my hobby. So that's where I focus. In that respect, Jump to It was set up for inshore racing, and in essence there maximised the sail areas, gave away on the IRC rating. I wanted the crew to do well on the water, so the morale was high, and it just builds to strong. We all know that once you're behind, inshore racing you can see exactly where you are, and if you go behind the game, you have a crew morale problem on the boat, difficult to motivate. So I went for the biggest area, thinking, okay, if we don't win finally, we'll win on the water.
Yeah, so you'll be fast in the wind conditions. Okay, so on the racing regatta itself down in Dartmouth, now you had one race in the whole campaign where you didn't finish in the top two. That was the very first race. So what did you know, was there a motivational speech after that, or did you clip anybody around the ear, or was it a little bit more subtle than that?
We had a bad start, is essence, on the first race. It was the crew. I was asked to do Dartmouth by Rob Lark of Ullman Sales.
Oh yeah, okay.
And as such, he basically put the crew together, except for myself and the bow. So it was a crew working together for the first time. And I think that first race there was an understanding of getting to know each other and what to expect.
Yeah, okay.
And both Rob and the trimmer, Dave Fremantle, very keen, competitive sailors.
Okay. So you had high standard of
So
crew and
the next race we came first.
Brilliant. Yeah. Now, did any of them have any knowledge of Dartmouth and the waters there and all that? So there's a bit of local knowledge as well thrown in, was there?
The actual crew had won the previous year on a J88, which was owned by Steve Northmore. Northmore.
Oh, okay.
And they'd won the event with that boat.
So the crew had history.
Yes, they had a history of being good winners, you could say.
Yeah. Did you do any, what preparation did you have to do before Dartmouth to the boat? Did you get it cleaned or anything like that work done?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're making that sort of an investment, because it's a long journey there. Well, for me, it was an awful journey to take it. But the bottom was cleaned the day before leaving. All the ropes were checked, standing rigging was checked, all the measurements were taken. So in general, the boat, you know, was correct to make the journey and
really
compete. The sails were checked and they were all in good shape. So in that respect, and also the other thing is to lighten the boat as much as you could, so any rubbish down below was taken out.
Yeah, okay. What are the conditions like for the regatta generally?
Very light airs for the 4 days, which of course J99 is supposed to be non-competitive in light airs, and we knew that when we set off, because in J Cup, where we came second only because we got damaged sails, beaten by the 122s, it was high wind conditions, so the boat performed extraordinarily well. So we weren't expecting to do that well, but I think again, with the setup we had, we were using principally J1, J2,
Okay.
which are the same size sails. One's a Doyle, one's a North.
But different weights, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
different weights. So, and the A2 Spinnaker,
Where
which
are you going?
I had a previous A2 Spinnaker, and it didn't give me the same downwind angles on this windward-leeward racing,
Yeah.
which again, being an inshore racer, that's what I wanted. So I then spoke to various companies and finally convinced by North, I had a previous North sail, that I could get the downwind angles with their designed A2, and indeed it gave me plus 10 degrees
Than what
on
you
the
were
other
getting.
A2, yeah,
Okay.
so it did the job.
Okay. So run us through your technique. Run us through your start line. Give us a few insights, Kevin. You know, what's your start line technique when you were planning your race?
It's fair to say that I'm a great believer that everybody's got a job to do, and I know my own limitations as a keen amateur, that it takes all my concentration to steer the boat. So in those conditions, I look upon a leader, basically a crew manager, you
Okay.
could say the tactician, who will make the calls. But clearly we're looking at the wind conditions, the tide conditions, where to position the boat, and looking at the forward winds as to go to which end of the start line,
Yeah.
and make sure we didn't get pushed over or we went through the line early. Classic mistakes, which of course is game over.
Yeah.
On the shortish inward racing, inshore racing. So in that respect, I was listening largely to Rob Lark. He was a tactician.
Yeah.
And looking also where the boats were. I'm very proud of my boat. I don't want it damaged. So
As you should be.
others are not so careful with the boat.
It's always different when you own a boat, how
It
you
is.
treat it, isn't it?
And there was occasional statement, it's not my boat, and you think,
Yeah.
yeah, well, it is mine. And but in saying that, a full credit to Rob and Dave. They gave me the positions which I of course agreed to and steered into it.
Yeah. How did the season go before that? You mentioned that you did really well at the J Cup,
Yep.
but you've had other successes.
Yes, we started off really the first main season. I do, as I say, inshore racing, to repeat myself. The spring series, we did okay. I think we were finally third. The summer series, last weekend is in fact next weekend, and we're lying second in that. J Cup, we were second, should have won it. So it's actually far better than what I intended, set out to do with the boat.
Okay.
With my abilities and the crew, I was wanting to be middle of the fleet or above. That's where I'd set my objective. So we've overcooked it a little bit, which has its own problems.
Well, yeah, you've got to do it again next year, haven't you?
And that could be a challenge.
How long does it take? So, thinking about when you brought the boat, you've probably only had a year, 18 months to get the boat to
18
that
months.
level. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not
About
bad
18
going, is it?
No.
Yeah.
Biggest issue, basically the sails. I started off with Doyle, which I'm still using. However, I felt that they weren't giving me everything I wanted, so I've now got a selection of Doyle, North and Ullman.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the Ullman main which I purchased this year because there were some issues on the Doyle. That was taking time to resolve those issues. It is happily resolved with Doyle, I'm pleased to say. However, the Ullman main has been specifically a brilliant mainsail.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And you've now got. So you said you've got the summer series going. Will you do winter series racing? Will
Yeah.
you stay mainly
Winter
in the
series, yeah, I would
brilliant.
stay in the Solent.
Yeah. And what's the big plans for next year? The same sort of regattas again, or?
It'll be more of the same, I think. Again, I'm not an offshore racer anymore. I recognise that that's not for me. Looking at the horizon and
Yeah, I'd like to get in for a cup of tea and a pint at the end of the race.
yeah, I can remember in a session where a presentation was being given by a well-known round-the-world sailor, and he said, you know, you guys, he was competing in a inshore race, you're grinding and you're changing sails, and he said, when I went round the world, it'll be a Monday, and I decided I was going to attack on Saturday. And that was Robert
Slightly different.
Johnson. So you know, that's not for me. I've done that,
Yeah,
and I've enjoyed. You know, I've done some big races, including Fastnet. Yeah, it was great fun. Done that, but I like to go into that nice, comfortable bed in the evenings.
Brilliant. Just one last question, mate. You've enjoyed the boat, you enjoyed the sailing. Any advice you can give people that are going to watch this and thinking about a J99 or thinking about inshore racing generally?
Yeah. Again, it's picking a boat you want. The J99 is a 31-foot boat, so it's usable. It's not too big. You can go on a short-handed crew, even I think set for two-handed crew.
Yeah.
It is a fun boat. It's very quick. We planed the boat numerous times. Yes, it's a bit hairy, but it's just great fun.
Gets the blood flowing, doesn't it?
A bit. So, you know, all I can say is it's horses for courses. And if you want a boat of that size and ability, it's the best you can get. As again, being a wheel, mine is different, but I enjoy the wheel because I can watch exactly what's going on, and I can keep an eye on things. I've always found jumping over a tiller is that bit more tricky.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it is a great boat. And of course it's money related. If you know, the spend is always an issue with everybody.
Of course it is. There's always
So
a
I
budget,
think
isn't there, somewhere along the
The
way?
next one up is double the price. I believe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So that's a
Mate,
big
that's
issue.
great. Fantastic, mate. That's brilliant.